Hello everybody and welcome to the ESI Digest. I'm Tom Daniels, the sub-editor of Esports Insider, and we're going to run through the biggest esports business related news stories of the week. Let's be honest, there was a lot of news again this week as everybody's kind of going into that esports season, a lot of organizations, tournament organizers. So we've got 5 stories for you and a little story just before the end as like a honorable mention. So we've got VSPN announcing that they have raised $60 million. We'll talk a little bit more of that in a second. KitKat being named the main partner of the LEC. We've got Nursery Gamers operating the first kind of VALORANT Champions Tour section, which is, again, really interesting. Lucozade Sport entering into esports for the first time with #United. And then finally, Astralis launching their own musical initiative with the Universal Music Group. So let's talk about that big story, the big announcement story that VSPN, also known as Versus Programming Network, a Chinese conglomerate in esports, has announced a £60 million fundraising closure. Now, this is unbelievable. I'm going to name who's actually led the round in, but it's the likes of Prospect Avenue Capital, Guotai Juan International, and Nanfang Group. Apologies if I get some of those wrong. And I think what kind of is, for me, surprising is this is off the back of VSPN having I believe $100 million investment just last year. I believe it was Tencent who were one of the lead investors in that. And obviously we've also heard the news that they've acquired Banana Gaming and Media. So that's also kind of part of the, essentially what I'm going to say now, the global initiative to kind of extend their reach outside of China. It's huge. It's a massive amount. I'm going to say what they've said that the funding is going to specifically go into, but it's kind of similar to what I've said. So it's actually towards creating new technologies in esports production, deepening the esports IP, and then also kind of going for the overseas services and creating new esports products. This definitely feels like something which, it's not going to be the next 2 months, the next 3 months where we're going to see significant changes. We've already seen them acquiring, certain esports entities, but it'll be more kind of, let's reflect on this in a year's time, see how that kind of reflects on the amount of money spent. But it's a big amount of money from both of these kind of investment rounds. With this one, especially, I find surprising considering the amount they've had, but I'm really looking forward to see kind of what happens. Moving on to our second story, and Nestle, more importantly KitKat, have announced that they will be the main partner of the LEC for the entire 2021 season. So that probably means it'll be the spring and the summer split. Now, I really like the LEC and how they've kind of produced a lot of their content. Their activations aren't just putting a logo on, the broadcast and, putting kind of sponsorships in between games. They've integrated their entire kind of ethos, their entire branding into adverts which also relate to Kia, to KitKat. And I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot more of this then in 2021 with KitKat. This is also very interesting because KitKat was not a main sponsor in 2020. What is actually happening is because of the unique activations that LEC are actually pushing out with the likes of Kia. We've already talked about loads of renewals last week with all of the Alienware, Logitech, Kia being the main 3. You're also seeing kind of expanded deals with KitKat because these activations are so unique, and we're going to be talking about it a little bit now. It's going to include a continuation of the esports needs a break campaign. It's going to have a 30-second advert. There's also going to be other activations which go along with probably the standard, going on the broadcast. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what these activations are, because their adverts are a lot more unique than what I would say a lot of other entities are doing. Right now, what we've realized is that brands need to be a little bit more than just a name on a broadcast. They need to kind of, attach themselves essentially to viewers, relate to viewers, because that's how they're going to drive, more customers to them essentially. And it'll be interesting to see kind of how KitKat is integrated into the LEC in 2021. The third story is esports infrastructure company Nursery Gamers announcing that they will be basically the first tournament organizers for the Challengers and Masters events on the 2021 VALORANT Champions Tour. Now, this is huge news for Nursery Gamers because not only are they now affiliating themselves with Valorant a lot more closely than what it was previously with First Strike, but they've been given the opportunity to be the first, essentially the first tournament organizers, the first hosts of this Champions Tour, alongside, I'm guessing, a lot of Riot Games' approval, third-party operation and everything like that. So they'll be taking through the tournaments from January till March. Then after March, which is also interesting, another company will be selected to host subsequent events. Now, this kind of says a lot of things. So firstly, with Nursery Gamers, it's great because what I really appreciate is the fact that Valorant has rewarded, and Riot Games in particular, has rewarded a company in Nursery Gamers who kind of associated themselves with Valorant very, very early on in terms of the creation of their own tournaments, then also cooperating with Riot on various tournaments thereafter. But then also, it's very interesting to see Valorant and Riot Games also say that they're going to be doing other third-party operators throughout the year. This is a lot different than what we've been kind of seeing with majority of the time with League of Legends. I know that some do have third-party operators, but in terms of like the big entities, they're normally not. So I really like this approach that they're doing with kind of the Masters and the Challengers tournaments. I really want to see kind of what the delivery of the Nursery Gamers broadcast of the VALORANT Champions Tour is going to be. And then I also am interested to see if it's going to change with each third-party operator. So is there going to be kind of like a different ethos and a different branding with each one of these kind of Champions and Masters tournaments? Only time will tell, but this is a great deal for Nursery Gamers. Every week, it seems like we're seeing a new brand get into esports, and this is what the next story is, 100%. Lucozade Sport have announced that they have basically partnered with #United. It is an extension of their deal with the non-league football club, and it's to include in-game activations in FIFA 21 and also in relation to the FIFA 21 esports team. We've seen kind of a similar activation with this, with 11's Esports, which is Gareth Bale's, I believe, owned esports organization, and Duracell. And what is essentially happening is Lucozade Sports logo will be on all of #United's FIFA 21 kits, and then also they'll have a jersey sponsorship for the esports team of #United as well. I think it was, for Lucozade Sport, it was kind of a match made in heaven for them, because obviously they get the popularity of being kind of a new age football club, of which #United is a completely, internet created football club essentially. You've then also got then the esports opportunity with #United, which can also branch them out even further, because it's all about brand activations with #United. That's how they get their popularity. That's how they're managing to be so successful, both in real life football and through their esports. And so Lucozade Sport hopefully have identified that and have gone into this. I don't think there's much more to say about the partnership itself, apart from the fact that, it's very indicative that we're seeing a lot more of these kind of, again, unique partnerships going into esports. This one being FIFA, but it'd be interesting to see what other partnerships, if we could see with the likes like CSGO, Dota, other brands will try and do to integrate themselves even further into the game itself. The final story before we get to our honourable mention is Astralis launching its initiative with Universal Music Group. Now, this is, again, I kind of talked about it with the 100 Thieves AT&T partnership. I think it's actually a deal which has gone under the radar. The esports organization has partnered with Universal Music Group for a new music initiative, and basically what that means is that they'll be launching a new project called Astralis Feat, and it's which the organization plans to work with musicians on exclusive tracks. I'm guessing that that's where Universal Music has been involved. Alongside the new initiative, Astralis obviously launched their first track in this new project, and it's with Danish musician Mattis, and he's released his first song, which is called To The Stars, or the first song with this Astralis project. I have to admit, actually, it's quite good, but obviously I think it's more the out of tone of the fact that they're working now with even more musicians. We saw it a little bit, I believe, with Fnatic working with, I can't remember the name, but I think it was like a British musician. We're seeing a lot more like music going into esports specifically, and I think that's a smart thing, because I think music kind of, and associating yourselves with music is also another way of bringing out your brand, but you're also then building up a content library which you could use for the future as well, which I think is, again, really, really smart. So I did say that I was going to do an honourable mention, and so the reason why I've not included this actually in the digest itself, but I'm only putting it and only really speaking about it in the video format and the audio format as well, is because the competition's already finished, unfortunately. So what has happened is Manchester City and FaZe have collaborated on a Fortnite tournament. Now, the whole reason for this is because Fortnite have announced their next big activation, and it was football. They've partnered with 35 different football organizations, and that in itself is a huge deal, having kind of a game collaborate with football. But what I kind of looked at it from more like an esports perspective, we then saw that FaZe had collaborated with Man City. The Fortnite tournament, I believe, took place yesterday, and this is why I didn't really want to include it directly into the digest. But again, it's another great activation. We're seeing this FaZe and Man City partnership grow stronger and stronger with each activation. I hope that it drove kind of a lot more impressions. It drove a lot more eyes either to Fortnite from the City side, which is interesting, but also a lot of eyes to Manchester City from the Fortnite side. The whole point of this partnership is to, I believe, drive awareness for both these brands and two separate audiences. And we'll have to see kind of the result of that in probably the next few days. But another really interesting initiative, and I had to include it, but because the tournament had already occurred, I didn't want to just have a completely dedicated section to it, unfortunately. And that is it for this week's ESI Digest. Like I said, there's a lot of news, but we've also got even more news if you want to check the ESI. If you want to follow me, then I'm at the Tom Daniels as well. Don't forget to follow Esports Insider as well, at Esports Insider. We've been publishing a lot more and posting a lot more on Instagram as well, so if you want to follow our Instagram, it'd be much appreciated. We're trying to really push that. But yeah, this has been the ESI Digest, and we'll see you next week.